polsko-amerykańskie braterstwo broni bierze się od Kościuszki, Pułaskiego. Generał Równy jest jakby kontynuacją. Mało tego, bo Puławski, jak Państwo tutaj patron i główny bohater tego muzeum, był twórcą amerykańskiej kawalerii, o czym będzie w filmie. A mój bohater przeniósł tę kawalerię z koników na helikoptery. I też to się nazywa powietrzna kawaleria. Myślę, że tyle tytułem wstępu, a po filmie jestem do Państwa dyspozycji, gdyby były jakieś pytania, gdyby coś trzeba było wyjaśnić, dopowiedzieć. A 2,5 roku mi to zajęło. Skończyłem w tym roku. Premiera była 3 kwietnia w 100-lecie urodzin generała Równego. Dokładnie. Generał żyje, ma się dobrze. 3 miał właśnie 100. urodziny, 4 mieliśmy premierę w Waszyngtonie, a później w telewizji Polonia jeszcze i w różnych innych antenach miał swoje emisje. Więc serdecznie zapraszam i po filmie jestem do Państwa dyspozycji. Dziękuję.
This is what the world would look like if not for him. General Równy is one of the 10 most important military leaders of the post-World War II United States Army. In 1971, he became the U.S. representative to the Strategic Arms Limitation Talks, SALT talks, with the Soviet Union. He held this position under 3 consecutive presidents: Richard Nixon, Gerald Ford, Jimmy Carter. Równy retired in 1979 in protest over the SALT II treaty signed by President Jimmy Carter. The next president, Ronald Reagan, appointed him as the chief negotiator for the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, START, negotiations on the reduction of nuclear weapons, and as the advisor on arms control. Ambassador Równy held these posts during President George H.W. Bush's term too. After his retirement, he became an international consultant on negotiations.
I admired General Równy because of his reputation of being a tough, severe negotiator on those issues of principal concern to the United States. We're dealing with vital security issues.
General Równy worked under 5 presidents to negotiate a peace between Russia and the United States.
He is a man of integrity and obviously someone who's a very accomplished person, very influential positions in the White House under many presidents.
Równy and I both graduated from the United States Military Academy in West Point. I read about him in professional military literature, professional diplomatic literature.
And this idea of air mobility fitted right into his personality.
The job that General Równy was asked to do was a sensitive job.
We have not had a nuclear holocaust with the Soviet Union. We could have easily have had that. We were 10 minutes from having that during the Cuban Missile Crisis. But General Równy's work was a tremendously significant action that maintained the peace of the world.
And it was a job that could not be performed just by anyone.
And I think he was a perfect man to be there because of his, not only his historic knowledge of the relationship between the United States and Russia, but also because of being a Polish American, I think he looked at this differently.
And his dedication to Poland and doing whatever he can is just amazing.
Mój ojciec Jan i Edwarda, ojciec Gracjan, byli rodzonymi braćmi. Nasi dziadkowie mieli gospodarstwo rolne, ciężkie warunki do życia, postanowili któregoś z synów wysłać do Stanów Zjednoczonych. Gracjan pojechał za chlebem, na drogę dostał medalik i bochenek chleba i ser.
My father came to the United States in 1910, and he was born in Poland at a little town near Warsaw called Nagroszewo.
Edward Leon Rowney, the United States Army Lieutenant General, was born on April 3, 1917 in Baltimore, Maryland, in a family of first and second generation Polish immigrants. 1917 is also the 100th anniversary of Tadeusz Kościuszko's death. Kościuszko was the commander-in-chief of a sovereign Polish state and is revered and celebrated in all Polish circles from Chicago to Tobolsk. This was also a year in which General Haller's Kościuszko Army was created in the United States on the initiative of Ignacy Jan Paderewski to fight for the 13th point of President Woodrow Wilson's 14-point plan.
And Paderewski used his talent, his charm, to convince President Woodrow Wilson that at the end of World War I, at the Treaty of Versailles, that Wilson should introduce a 13th point of his 14 points for the peace treaty. The 13th point being that there should be a free and independent Poland.
An independent Polish state should be erected, which should include the territories inhabited by indisputably Polish populations, which should be assured a free and secure access to the sea, and whose political and economic independence and territorial integrity should be guaranteed by international covenant. National culture, the Catholic Church, and Polish literature and music were strengthening the identity of Polish emigrants. Paderewski's global career was a source of pride and hope for the entire Polish émigré community, strengthening their belief in themselves.
From the time I was 6 and until I was 16, I lived with my grandmother. She loved listening to Ignacy Jan Paderewski's piano playing and loved his composition. And she taught me to love Paderewski, and not only because he was a piano player, great world famous renown, but also because he was a great statesman. Right after my graduation in 1941, Paderewski died in New York City, and my grandmother made me promise that one day I would get Paderewski back to Poland. When Paderewski died, there was no Poland to go to. Poland didn't exist. So President Roosevelt said, put Paderewski into the Arlington Cemetery temporarily until Poland will be free. And I spent the next 50 years working on that. My grandmother taught me the great value of democracy and about American history, and also she taught me about Polish history. She not only taught us about Pulaski, but about Kościuszko. And she said that Kościuszko was a famous general during the Revolution and had helped build the fort up at West Point, New York, and it helped to win the war.
Kościuszko's fortification system at West Point is the most important fortification system of the entire American Revolution. And General Rowney, his commitment to Kościuszko's garden is because of his love of Kościuszko.
He knew how to negotiate. He would get to a critical, tense time in the negotiation with the Russians, and he'd pull out his harmonica.
A man who would pick out his harmonica from his pocket and play classical music. I don't know any other general in the United States or in the world could do that.
When I was 9 years old, I was selling newspapers in Baltimore called the Baltimore Sun. And the newspaper company said that if a newsboy would get 10 subscriptions to people that would subscribe to the newspaper, they would give him a harmonica and give him 10 lessons on how to play the harmonica. So I got 10 subscriptions, they gave me a harmonica, and I went to get my lessons, and other newsboys did the same thing, so I became a member of the harmonica band.
He could predict the coming war. This was the reason he joined the army. This was the reason he decided to serve his country, America, and serve other people to save their life and create a space of freedom.
When I went to Europe on a scholarship in 1936, I was 19 years old. I went to Jagiellonian University at Krakow under the Kosciuszko Foundation. And while I was there, I went to the Berlin Olympics, and I saw how strident and how militant the Nazis were, and I said, there's going to be a war. So I came home, finished my college the next year, and got a degree from the college. Also got commissioned as a reserve as a second lieutenant in the engineers. But then decided that I wanted to be a regular army officer, so I went to West Point and started in 1937 and graduated in 1941. While I was there at West Point, the Nazis overran Poland on September 1st, 1939.
Edward Rowney was a graduate of West Point and Yale and earned a doctorate in international studies at American University. During World War II, he fought in the field as a battalion commander during the Allied invasion of Italy. He was an assistant to General MacArthur during the Korean War, where he was one of the designers of the Incheon landing that enabled the capture of Seoul.
West Point 41, and I was West Point 44. So we were not exactly contemporaries, but we came to know one another. He had a very good reputation.
Wanting to stop the process of establishing new communist countries in Asia, the United States got involved, militarily and financially, in supporting the government of South Vietnam.
to help defend this small and valiant nation. This, then, my fellow Americans, is why we're in Vietnam.
The Vietnam War was already on. Mr. McNamara, Secretary of Defense, wanted to get the Army air mobile with a lot of helicopters. So he told the Army to study that problem. And Ed Riley was put in charge of a team down there, units, to study air mobility.
The Secretary of Defense sent me to Vietnam with some makeshift weapons on helicopters. Makeshift that we just put machine guns in the doorway and strapped on some rockets. So after that was successful, they asked me to put together an air cavalry division, air mobile.
He had been selected to command the 1st Cavalry Division.
We took it from ground cavalry, made it air cavalry. I wanted to name it after Polskiej, who was the father of American cavalry, but as they call it, the Air Mobile Division, Sky Cavalry. And it was very easy to transport troops around the flanks and then to the rear. And by flying very low and fast, enemy couldn't see the helicopter fast enough to shoot them down. So we were able to get over the enemy, behind and around the enemy. The whole idea then caught on throughout the end of the war in Vietnam. The helicopter became more and more successful. Well, first, it was great disappointment that we couldn't get the concept approved by higher headquarters, and even the Army was against it. But then, to say we got the Secretary of the Army and the Secretary of Defense interested, who ordered the Army to do this. Once the air cavalry concept was approved, I had a lot of fun putting the division together.
And I had become convinced of the value of air mobility myself. I thought it would give a great flexibility to the Army.
I was proud of the fact that in 1961, I took the first helicopters to Vietnam with weapons on them.
The Vietnam War led to the increased military activity of the Soviet Union. There were some plausible reports of Russia rapidly expanding its nuclear capability. General Równy was recalled from Vietnam and assigned as a representative of the Army to the committee negotiating strategic arms limitations with the Russians as part of SALT I and then SALT II.
Our negotiating with the Soviet Union was also a very tense time because we realized that any slip or any mistake could result in a nuclear war where millions would be killed. And we came close to going to war with the Soviet Union at the time the Cuban Missile Crisis occurred.
Now your leaders are no longer Cuban leaders, inspired by Cuban ideals. They are puppets and agents of an international conspiracy which has turned Cuba against your friends and neighbors in the Americas.
Had a very difficult time fighting diplomatic battle and very awfully careful not to let this accelerate or expand into a nuclear war. What we wanted to do was to succeed without using that strength, because if we used the nuclear weapon, we were afraid that a nuclear war could never be won, that both sides would lose.
Ceremonies concluding 10 years of careful negotiation. Signing of the SALT II Treaty in Vienna in 1979 by President Carter and Premier President.
Wówczas pod wpływem Kazimiera panowała tak zwana polityka odprężenia, która była niesymetryczna. Polegała na jednostronnych ustępstwach wobec Moskwy.
The talks in Vienna were important in themselves, but their truest significance was as a part of a process that, as you well know, began long before I became president.
President Carter, he believed in peace through talk and not peace through strength, but he still wanted to get an agreement which I thought would be detrimental to the security of the United States.
Ambassador Równy was very much opposed to SALT II. His point was SALT would allow both sides to build up from 12,000 warheads to 18,000 warheads. That would increase the danger, not decrease.
The leader of the United States and the leader of the Soviet Union have met at a summit conference.
But he still wanted to get an agreement which I thought would be detrimental to the security of the United States. So I could not convince him, and when he signed the SALT II Treaty, I resigned in protest. I left the military so that I could testify in Congress against that particular treaty.
The thing that first I came to cherish him with is the fact that he valued education, and he felt that the greatest gift that you could give to your children was the gift of learning. And he taught me things before they were taught in school and long before some people ever knew them.
I was born first. I'm the oldest of 5. I think my father's intellectual curiosity is something that I value and that he has passed on to us. Interest in many things, in art, in science, in history. Saturday mornings was clean house day. And if I took the vacuum cleaner and just tried to get up the dirt, just where I saw dirt, he would object and say, you must do it from corner to corner, like you're painting, up, back, up, back, up, back. So I still remember that. I still clean like that.
My father tried to balance his life as much as possible. And so matching family life with his career was always something that was very important to him. It was always important for him to get the family together whenever possible, and that continues until this day, when the family is already many generations beyond. And whenever he had the opportunity, he would take the family on vacation together. It was a large family, and it took a lot of effort, but I think everyone has ended up being very close.
On Sunday, he made a big effort and had a commitment to doing that. And so we would go to visit a church, or we would go to an art museum. He's a man who makes lists and has an agenda and has a plan. And this is the way he's been all through his life.
He is very resourceful about time. He was sent to graduate school, courtesy of the Army, to get a master's degree. And while he was there, he got 2 master's degrees. And they were in completely disparate disciplines. One of them was engineering, and the other one was international relations. He can perform his job and yet have time for his family.
I remember him rolling up the carpet in the living room and teaching me to dance, putting my feet on top of his, to waltz and to polka. So I learned polka early. I've always loved to dance and still do dance. When we're together with my dad, mostly he is the center of attention.
We have no reason to say that it was a family or American affair. The two kind of went together. A strong family makes a strong country.
My father was always on duty and always available for his country.
He was absolutely dedicated to START, which was dedicated to the reduction of these nuclear weapons from 12,000 to 7,000.
Nuclear powers on Earth needed to establish some agreements as to boundaries of nuclear capability and capacity. And it had to be done in a responsible way. It had to be done by both parties. It was certainly for the good of both countries, but also for mankind.
Military, I thought, to understand that nuclear war could never be won, so it shouldn't be fought.
Reagan administration was looking for it, someone who had all those skills, but also had the confidence and respect that would be required in order to negotiate something this important.
Enough talks, but also in START, they've been stonewalling our proposals. When we proposed confidence-building measures that could be agreed to right now, they said, wait.
Breżniew i kierownictwo sowieckie zrozumiały, że czas pracuje na ich niekorzyść, że oni przebywają wyścig zbrojny i że to właśnie mogło ich skłonić do jakiegoś wielkiego prewencyjnego uderzenia.
Ambassador Równy, as you and your team depart for Geneva, you go with the certain knowledge that you're negotiating with the full support of the American people. Our bipartisan support is stronger than ever before, and you carry with you fair, equitable proposals that are in the interest of both nations and all humankind.
I became President Reagan's chief architect for peace through strength, and we built up our strength first, and then we were able to negotiate.
President Reagan was very definitely supportive of Równy's position, and Równy was very supportive of the president's position of peace through strength. And of course, the president said, trust but verify. And that was his theme song, and Ambassador Równy repeated that many times.
The peace through strength was to build up, not to supersede or become stronger or lord it over the Soviets, but to have equal numbers. This was a very tense time, and then I was the only man on our side that spoke Russian. The Soviets had certain rules of their own. One is that they believed that to be equal, they needed to be more equal. I learned about their history and about their culture and see how they thought. They'd always been aggressive. They always believed in shading the truth about when it came to working for the country. They said that you can't lie or cheat or steal except when you're working for your country. Our approach was not insulting them, but being firm with them.
We cannot agree with Soviet assertions that developments outside the scope of these negotiations require the Soviet Union to withhold agreement on a resumption date for the 6th round of START.
Whenever we got real tense, particularly at social gatherings, because they always wanted to negotiate with some of the social guys as well. So I would take out my harmonica and play the harmonica, play some Russian tunes, and get them to sing and dance along with the Russian tunes. And so the harmonica helped out quite a bit.
I met him in 1983 when I joined the START negotiations. I was a public affairs advisor, and I was a spokesperson for the delegation, because he'd been criticized highly by the liberals. And yet, in the end, he was instrumental in bringing START.
We knew that in the long run, the Soviet Empire would implode, that the Soviet Union did not have an economic system that would be equal to free enterprise. In 1989, they did implode and broke up. Pope played a great role in this.
By na czas przeciwdziałać konfliktom międzynarodowym lub by konflikty te znalazły swe słuszne rozwiązanie, by zapewnić i udoskonalić nieodzowne podstawy pokojowego współżycia między krajami i kontynentami.
Ambassador Rowney, he was briefing the Pope on the negotiations, and of course John Paul was very, very interested in those negotiations.
Porzucenie wyścigu coraz groźniejszych zbrojeń, również w dziedzinie nuklearnej, jako przygotowanie do stopniowego i zrównoważonego rozbrojenia.
And Reagan was backing the Pope, but trying to do this quietly and behind the scenes so that the Russians would get all excited and upset that we were backing the Poles. We're trying to do this.
Ambassador Rowney, being very Polish and very Catholic, this was a very important visit for him.
I met 4 times with the Pope officially. I met 3 times with him unofficially. And he always translated to me his great feeling that the United States should back the Poles and the Poles would succeed.
Wołam wraz z wami wszystkimi. Niech wstąpi duch Twój. Niech wstąpi duch Twój i odnowi oblicze ziemi, tej ziemi. Amen.
Poland is, by any measurement, far ahead of all these other nations. If for no other reason, then the communists were never able to break the Poles. The church. The church held the Poles together, and that didn't happen in any other country. And so the Poles never lost who they were. They never lost their identity.
Poland may be temporarily subdued, but the Polish people will never be defeated.
The arms race severely weakened the Soviet economy, with the country dissolving in December 1991. For Rowney's considerable services and for negotiating the START agreement, President Ronald Reagan awarded him the Presidential Citizens Medal, with the inscription, "One of the chief architects of peace through strength." Pursuant to the START agreement, the United States of America and the Soviet Union were to reduce symmetrically the number of nuclear warheads to 6,000.
They always exchanged pens. The pen that Gorbachev used to sign START 1 on July 31st of 1991 in the Kremlin is made out of titanium from the melted down shell of an SS-18 rocket pointed at the heartland of America. And as we all know, the SS-18 was the largest missile that the Soviets had. Ambassador Rowney was absolutely dedicated to the reduction of the threat, but not the complete elimination of all nuclear weapons.
Anyone who believes that
because the Soviet Union's gone or other threats that existed 20 years ago may not exist, has not read much history.
We had to convince the administration and mostly the Senate we should invite Poland and of course make it more palatable, also Hungary and Czech Republic, the Central Powers, to join NATO.
And I've always believed NATO is more than just security. NATO is, yes, a collective security institution, but it represents far more than that, because entry into NATO and a member of NATO also assures stability and security, which translates directly into economic security and economic stability.
Senator Hagel was a very great supporter of having Poland into NATO.
I know there are different thoughts about that, but I still think it was one of the best decisions we could have made, and we did make.
It was a difficult struggle for several years, but we used a lot of prominent Polish Americans. Zbigniew Brzezinski, who had been the National Security Advisor to President Carter, and Jan Nowak, Jaruzelski, had other senators who helped us a great deal. Senator Lieberman, Senator Mikulski from Maryland, Senator Wojciechowski, and others.
And it was very clear that nations, in particular like Poland, wanted very much, and their people wanted to be part of NATO and part of the Western institutions.
Now Poland is joining NATO. Poland is taking its place in the community of democracies. Never again will your fate be decided by others. Never again will the birthright of freedom be denied you. Poland is coming home. Nic o was bez was.
Their early commitment, their early enthusiasm, their realization because of their history over the last few hundred years made Poland uniquely positioned. Its size, its traditions, its history, its people, its culture, to be a leader in NATO.
If I had 2/3 of the Senate agree, and once it happened, then in 1999, finally got Poland, Czech Republic, and Hungary into NATO.
Poland was the first to meet all of those criteria of all the new nations that were being considered to join. Poland is one of only about 4 current NATO nations of the 28 that make the 2% of your gross domestic product to go for defense. They have always been right at the front end of every commitment, and regardless of the conflict around the world, they have been right there to help. But they have been a very effective and loyal member of NATO.
Please stand.
It's my great honor and pleasure to welcome you all to Poland.
You've got to engage countries. You have to talk with people. Because if you don't, there's a lot of misunderstanding that builds in between. The fact that you get leaders together can have an opportunity for some very direct, honest exchanges. I think that's important. Problems arise when there's too much isolation and there's not enough communication.
Our position is clear. NATO does not seek confrontation. We don't want a new Cold War. The Cold War is history, and it should remain history. We will continue to seek constructive and meaningful dialogue with Russia.
The struggle for democracy is never over. It must be fought every day.
Every society, every country in the history of man always is threatened by outside interests. And now it's a different kind of a threat.
We face a different kind of an enemy. Whereas the Soviet Union was a nation, and the United States versus Soviet Union, nations against nations. We're now nations against terrorists and individuals. And it's hard to combat because they have a great number of suicide bombers who think nothing of risking their life, as they believe that if they die for their religion, they go to heaven.
Overall cloud of terrorism, that reality that is now present in Europe and around the world, isn't going to fade away.
We're facing a very difficult type of warfare now, and trying to adjust and learn how to combat these terrorists.
What's happened in France, what's happened in Brussels, which is a very real threat that's not going to go away soon in Europe. Second is where Russia continues to go is uncertain. The Russians now occupy Crimea. They occupy through their separatist allies in eastern Ukraine.
Yes, it is a real threat because while during the negotiations under President Reagan, when we were negotiating, Gorbachev and the other leaders are more sensible. Putin is not as sensible, and he violated Ukrainians' sovereignty by moving into the Crimea. He may, if he's successful, may try to get the Baltic states. We have to take Putin very seriously because he's trying to build his power wherever and how we can. Poland has taken the right course by allying first with the United States, building an anti-ballistic missile system, and also strengthening its forces. I think that Poland is taking the correct approach by spending money and investing it really in military power to protect its independence and protect its future. So I think that their polls are going down on the right track.
My father is a person who believes that one person can make a great difference, and he lived his life that way.
Ed is a very imaginative man. Thinks a lot, thinks ahead, and always looking for something new.
He was always interested in pushing forward for the larger principles that he believed in.
His fearlessness, he's unafraid to buck the tide. When he's right, he pushes ahead.
He has been an example of generosity under stress.
A diplomat, military hero, and his love of Podaraski and spreading that tradition in Poland is very important to him, and the relationship between Poland and the United States.
I think he's been very successful in promoting not only those things that he considered vital to American security, but those things that are considered vital to promoting U.S.-Polish cultural relationships. So he's a Renaissance man in a way.
He is not looking after himself. He's looking after the good of the nation.
He was selected about 5 years ago to receive our Walter Judd Freedom Awards, our greatest honor that we give out. And it's given to someone who promotes freedom around the world.
He is a commander. He is loving, as was and continues to be Kosciuszko.
Washington is very fortunate in the fact that here in the Polonia, in this diaspora here, you had people like Jan Karski, Jan Nowak Jezierski, Walter Zahariuszewicz. You had people like General Rowney. These are people who are legends in Polish-American relationships and history.
And his dedication to Poland and doing whatever he can is just amazing.
Jeszcze Polska nie zginęła, póki my żyjemy.
Bardzo dziękuję w imieniu Polonii, Filadelfii i Stanów Zjednoczonych za ten film. Bardzo ważny film moim zdaniem, bardzo dobrze, bardzo elegancki, bardzo powerful, mocny film, silny film, emocjonalnie i gratulacje, wielkie brawa. Dziękuję.
Bardzo dziękuję. Starałem się jak mogłem. Sam jestem bardzo zadowolony z tego, że udało mi się zrobić film o tak wielkim człowieku i że w stulecie jego urodzin udało nam się wyemitować ten film w telewizji publicznej jako hołd oddany temu człowiekowi. Pan generał dzisiaj ma 100 lat i miesiąc, więc czuję się dobrze i w dalszym ciągu jest międzynarodowym konsultantem do spraw negocjacji, a także ma fundację imienia Paderewskiego, kwestuje na rzecz pozyskania środków i zaprasza z Polski rocznie 5-6 studentów, funduje im stypendia na uniwersytetach amerykańskich. Oczywiście w życiu podobno nie ma przypadków, ale ja uważam, że są tylko przypadki. Ponieważ ja realizowałem film o Paderewskim, bo ja się głównie Paderewskim zajmuję. Jestem pomysłodawcą i dyrektorem festiwalu Paderewskiego, którego 3 emisje już się odbyły, 4. będzie w listopadzie. Tam jest w Warszawie, w Filharmonii, w Łazienkach Królewskich, studio koncertowe Polskiego Radia, Zamek Królewski, tygodniowy festiwal. Tam są foldery, można sobie wziąć i jest po polsku, po angielsku, więc można przeczytać. Natomiast poznałem generała chyba 8 lat temu. Dostałem taką informację od mojej przyjaciółki, pani profesor Celiny Imielińskiej z Columbia University. Zadzwoniła do mnie, powiedziała, że jest taki generał. No i ja dostałem jakiś grant z Ministerstwa Kultury na tak zwaną dokumentację historii mówionej, bo między moimi kolegami tu panuje takie przeświadczenie, że ja to jeżdżę do tej Ameryki, bo tam są fajne laski, mówiąc językiem kolokwialnym. Ja mówię, ja zajmuję się Polonią, taką młodzieżą polonijną, tylko u mnie przeciętna wieku 94. W związku z tym dokumentuję takich ludzi. Jeden z tych, który był na ekranie, już w ramce niestety, jak go zdokumentowałem, miał 104,5 roku. Zachariasiewicz się nazywał. Bardzo też piękny życiorys, ale nie zdążyłem już wszystkiego zrobić, bo niestety 2 tygodnie mu zabrakło do 105 i opuścił nasz padł. I takich ludzi ja zdokumentowałem kilkudziesięciu w Stanach Zjednoczonych. 21 razy byłem w Stanach, więc trochę mi się udało. Ale generała, tak jak powiedziałem, poznałem 8 lat temu i właściwie to on mnie zafascynował jako pasjonat Paderewskiego, bo tak jak w filmie powiedział, on się 50 lat zajmował tym, żeby jego zwłoki, Paderewskiego zwłoki zwróciły do wolnej Polski. Miało to się odbyć w 50-lecie, ale pan prezydent Wałęsa to wstrzymał przez rok i dopiero w 1992 roku Air Force, tak jak było widać na filmie, przywiózł zwłoki Paderewskiego. Szefem delegacji był generał Równy. No i prezydent Bush przekazał prezydentowi Wałęsie i kardynałowi Klempowi szczątki Paderewskiego, który spoczywa w warszawskiej katedrze, a serce w amerykańskiej Częstochowie w Darlington w stanie Pensylwania. Tak. To tam cała historia, tutaj była wystawa, zresztą mojego autorstwa na temat historii serca Paderewskiego, bo takie mam 2 wystawy. No, generalnie zajmuję się Paderewskim, więc jedna wystawa się nazywa Historia serca Paderewskiego i opowiada o tym, co się z tym sercem działo po śmierci, a druga jest Paderewski wygrał Polskę na fortepianie. To zaczerpnąłem tytuł od Jerzego Waldorfa, z którym pracowałem przez jego ostatnie lata. I to jest wystawa, którą co roku wieszamy na ogrodzeniu Łazienek Królewskich. Ona jest unikatowa o tyle, że podpisy pod zdjęciami to są cytaty wielkich ówczesnego świata. Między innymi Camille Saint-Saëns, słynny francuski muzyk, pisze tak: Paderewski to geniusz i do tego gra na fortepianie.